Hello and welcome everybody. I am sure this is a pretty unpopular opinion, especially when you look at all the lists where people rank the different Far Cry games. But for me, Far Cry New Dawn is one of the best games of this series and I thoroughly enjoy coming back to this title from time to time. And I thought about this. Why do most people agree that it is not a good Far Cry game, but I enjoy it? What's wrong with me? So I dissected my enjoyment with it and compared it to my other Far Cry experiences. And here's why I think it is a good Far Cry game and why you should maybe give it a try. I personally enjoy the Far Cry formula, although it is a little worn out at this point. And Far Cry 6 was a rather mediocre experience for me compared to Far Cry 4 and 5, which I overall liked. I am also mostly motivated by gameplay, compelling progression systems and setting or atmosphere of a game. I'm not so big on story-driven games. This is why I enjoy games like Elden Ring or Remnant 2 much more than a Baldur's Gate or Guardians of the Galaxy, for example. And if diving into a deep and compelling story is the main motivation for you to really enjoy a game, then your perspective will be vastly different than mine. In games like Remnant 2 or Elden Ring, the story is more a part of the overall atmosphere, not the real selling point of those games. The tight gameplay and player progression systems are. While I enjoyed the overall setting, atmosphere and the story of Far Cry 4 and 5, I found the story of Far Cry 6 very dull and drawn out. And though I hated Joseph Seed and his religious lunatics or liked Pagan Min's crazy overacting, the emotional connection to the story was never the main reason to enjoy these games. The story was just part of the overall setting, and while the stories of Far Cry 6 or New Dawn are for sure on the lower quality end of the series, that never was a deal breaker for me. The Far Cry 6 setting is pretty beautiful after all, even if I enjoyed the Far Cry 4 and 5 locations more. If you look at complaints about Far Cry New Dawn or 6, then you'll often find the implementation of more RPG-like elements compared to earlier entries on top of those reviews. And for me, the opposite is the case. Especially New Dawn was a big shift in that direction, and Far Cry 6 took a lot of those elements, but funny enough, also watered down some key features like the skill system. I explained all this in detail because Far Cry New Dawn is, in my opinion, a very well structured game in terms of progression systems and game length. The older entries, and unfortunately Far Cry 6 too, always had a very disconnected progression experience in the way that you were done with all those systems way before you finished the game. Skill trees, better weapons and so on are available very early. For example, the Karma system in Far Cry 4 was nearly maxed out by the halfway mark, or in Far Cry 5 you had all the essential skills and weapons available way before finishing the game. And if you are not driven by the story, like me, and the gameplay does not further evolve, it starts to feel boring. But if you constantly have some carrot on the stick in front of you, then I am the kind of guy that is driven by that. Give me a better or different weapon, ways to further improve my character, and so on. And Far Cry New Dawn has a nearly perfect balance between game length, story and player progression. It even implemented some kind of mastery levels where you are able to further upgrade certain skills like ammo capacity and your favorite weapons infinitely. Think mastery levels in Diablo 3. This is a very neat mechanic to keep resources and gathering of those relevant and motivating. One main resource in Far Cry New Dawn is ethanol, which you need to upgrade your base, which is needed to craft better weapons or improve maximum health and so on. You can get this resource mainly by clearing outposts and some open world events like random supply drops. This is tied to another system Far Cry New Dawn nailed, the individual reset of every conquered outpost. This gives you some extra ethanol, but the outpost will be recaptured and levels up if you will. Far Cry New Dawn has 4 progression tiers. The grey or basic one is where you and every outpost and expedition starts. then blue, purple and gold. Every enemy, outpost, expedition, weapon and so on falls in one of those tiers and progress by various means, like crafting a higher level weapon which is tied to an upgraded workshop in your home base, which is tied to the overall home base level. So instead of Far Cry 6 throwing the grapple hook at you right at the start and deleting the skill progression system in exchange for a very uncompelling gear system, you have to go through all these upgrade steps to craft a superior weapon, for example. And it is not that these systems itself are what makes it work, it is how they are tied to your overall game time spent, main story progression and game length. With New Dawn being a smaller Far Cry game, it is also less drawn out and makes it much easier to provide compelling progression all the way. So main factor 1 why I enjoy this game more than others are these neatly balanced and integrated progression systems. But that is not all. The setting is nice and some areas look really gorgeous even by today's standards. Well, the story is not a big banger. Neither the twins nor the Joseph Seed conclusion is very noteworthy. The latter is somewhat okay, but the twins are mostly absent and annoying. At least not as annoying as the similar setup Borderlands 3 siblings. Like in other entries, you also have full control of the UI and which informations you want on screen. So if you want a fully immersive experience with no displayed informations and elements at all, you can do that. Enemy outposts have a very nice design and you can reset each one and level it up whenever you want. This will grant you more ethanol, which is still a relevant resource in the late game. And on top, you are rewarded with some cosmetics. Every outpost has a special outfit and parts of it can randomly drop each time you conquer it. Shocking, Ubisoft gives away some cosmetics without making you pay for it. But of course you can take a shortcut and buy them directly. It is Ubisoft after all. So the whole outpost design, recapture mechanic while also providing a meaningful resource is nicely done. And if you level up an outpost, there's a slight change in layout as more and more alarms are added to the compound. And finally expeditions, which are very similar to the Far Cry 6 variant, but without that stupid stay in the shadows mechanic. You have to extract a package from some really huge and nice designed areas. Usually 2/3 of the expedition plays like a stealth/infiltration mission until you reach the package. 30 seconds after you grab the package and move to the extraction point, the GPS tracker of said package activates and hell breaks loose. The expeditions provide materials you need for the highest tier weapons and to further upgrade those, which you can do infinitely. The expeditions start at the basic tier and especially the contested extraction part is very challenging on the highest difficulty, even on the lowest tier, with weapons already 1 or 2 tiers above it. Think of a raid-like feature for solo players. I still don't understand why they changed those to the worse in Far Cry 6. So after finishing the story or before ever ending it, the game provides a lot of replayability and infinite upgrade systems for your character. Hunting down resources for the next damage increase of your weapons is still relevant in the late game. Like I said, it is a Diablo or RPG-like feature set implemented in the Far Cry sandbox. And most of those systems are nicely balanced and connected with each other. To sum it up, outposts, expeditions and relevant progression systems throughout the game are why I enjoy Far Cry New Dawn the most gameplay-wise from all Far Cry games. And especially if you like Far Cry 6, you should definitely try Far Cry New Dawn, because it is a much more refined version of that game, even if it is older. But if you are more the story-driven type of gamer, then New Dawn falls way behind Far Cry 3 to 5, which had the best stories in my opinion. What do you think about Far Cry New Dawn these days, and what are you hoping for in the next Far Cry game now that we have a Far Cry Avatar installment? Thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed this kind of retrospective take on older or niche games. I would love to do more of these in the future. Do you have any suggestions of games you would like to see covered? For now, this is all. Take good care of yourself and enjoy your gaming sessions.